Hey guys, Jessica from Healthy by Choice. I wanted to take a quick little minute to explain why my family and I choose not to use antibiotics unless they're 100% necessary. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with this because I tend to ramble and I get going really quick. People have been asking me recently because I just disclosed that my son is going to be having a hernia repair. He has an inaugural hernia, which means the hernia is in his groin, which has caused some issues with him, such as his right testicle, because it's in his right groin, is freely moving up and between his abdomen and then down into his scrotum. So once the hernia is repaired, it will stop the testicle from moving up and down, and it'll be able to be where it belongs, so we don't have to deal with potential problems with fertility or cancer or anything later in his life. Well, I had said that I was going to be meeting with the surgeon. My husband and I were to discuss some things that we would like done and things we would not like done during his surgery. One of those things being that we did not want him to have antibiotics unless it was 100% necessary during the procedure. And we asked, what her rates were of infection and how common an infection would be, because this is an area like urology that we don't really know a whole lot about. So we opted to not do antibiotics. His surgery is later in October, and his doctor was 100% on board with it. She's completely fine with it. She did explain, like she has to, the risks and then the benefits of the antibiotics and so on and so forth. But she was very open and very honest that he should be fine. That she's never had an infection, even with other parents who've decided not to have antibiotics with their children's surgery. She has never had an infection that as she knows of, type of thing. And she said she does about 400 different surgeries a year on pediatrics, urology stuff. So some people are asking me, why are you so against antibiotics? Antibiotics are good. They keep you from getting infection, blah, blah, blah. So I thought I would take a minute and just make a video real quick so you guys can watch it. I'm also, you might be coming across this on my blog because I'm going to explain things a little bit more in depth on the blog itself. But I'm just going to go and talk about antibiotics versus probiotics. So 70% of our immune system resides in our gut lining. And in the gut lining is things that are known as beneficial bacteria, gut flora, friendly bacteria, probiotics. You might hear, different names for it. That bacteria that's in there is actually it's an amazing bacteria. It actually makes up 70% of our immune system. Like I said earlier, it also protects us. It makes like a barrier effect and will protect us from diseases, things that we eat that might not be the greatest for us, things that we come in contact with daily. It protects our bodies from harm, in a sense. It also helps with assimilation and breakdown of foods and vitamins and other nutrients that we take and we ingest. It also can produce vitamin B and vitamin K in the body. And let me see what else. So many things that gut bacteria does for you. One thing it really does is it discourages yeast, which is seen as Candida. Some people call Candida, when they say, Candida. So there's like yeast infections, Candida. Some people have chronic Candida, which is really bad. That basically is overgrowth from sugar, too much sugar going into our diets. And that's like a whole nother video, a whole nother day. But we have all this sugar in our daily, intake, and so it makes yeast grow and grow and grow and take over. Well, probiotics, gut flora, whatever you want to call it, eats away that yeast and candida and gets rid of it for us, and it discourages the growth of it. Okay, so then what about antibiotics? When you get an infection, there are like bad bacteria that's in your body. Probiotics should be able to, most of the time, go after that bad bacteria and kind of has a little bit of a fight with it, fights it off, eats it, does whatever it's got to do, off on its way, type of thing, sends it on its way. When people get infections, ear infections, eye infections, you name it, they go to their doctor. Their doctors will prescribe them one of 6 or 7 different antibiotics depending upon, what type of infection you might have. Oftentimes people aren't taught that their body could fight something off easily. They just immediately, as soon as they get an infection, go for antibiotics. Or they'll take antibiotics in just like as a preventative type of thing, which I don't agree with either. But when you take in antibiotics, you have a round of antibiotics or a high dose of like one antibiotic, it destroys the gut flora. It destroys the good bacteria and the bad bacteria altogether. This is why that can be a problem, is because when we're taking in foods or we have something, we come in contact with something, our good beneficial bacteria has been seriously compromised from the antibiotics. And so it cannot properly protect us in the way that it should be protecting us. And for my son, he is 7 months old, and I don't want my son to get sick unless, no parent wants their son to get sick, their child to get sick. So we do everything we can to keep him healthy. And you want to look at, like, I'm not anti-antibiotic. I think that they are created for a really good reason. My stepdad recently had a very bad eye infection. And he actually had to have a tear duct replaced, and the infection was down into his face and in his eye. It was terrible. So with that happening, he needed antibiotics. He needed like an antibiotic wash, I believe. He was taking oral antibiotics. And he even noticed that once the infection was gone and everything, he just felt terrible. His digestive tract was a mess. He couldn't get regular. He was either, having constipation, diarrhea. He felt no energy, nothing. He was just feeling terrible, even though the eye infection was gone. And after speaking with a naturopathic doctor, he learned that he needed to have more probiotics in his system, in his body. So I got him some really good probiotics to have in his body to help him recover. Okay, so say, you're presented with this case of antibiotics. Some people have said, why don't you just let your son get the probiotic, or let your son get the antibiotics and then just give him a probiotic afterwards. If something were to come up where he would need that, then we definitely would immediately, as soon as possible, start him on probiotics daily. But I'm one of those health conscious moms. I'm right on top of everything. I'm a type A personality. I follow health and wellness things to a T. A lot of parents or people, they don't know. They don't realize that, when you take antibiotics, it kills all the bad bacteria. They don't know, or the good bacteria too. So they don't know that they need to restore that. It's not always something that's, antibiotics, okay, we need to buy probiotics too and start taking those. It's been proven, this is part of the reason I don't want to give him antibiotics. It has been proven that once you have one round of antibiotics or a high dose, it can take up to 2 years to have your gut flora fully repair and recover from that one round of antibiotics. Now let's think about this for a second. I'm sure you have seen on Facebook, or people, or even your own kids or yourself, who have had, like, say, an ear infection, and it's like their 5th time being on an antibiotic, or their 4th time. And that's a lot. And so you think about how many rounds, then you add all the years. To me, I'm like, oh my goodness, because I know how much of the immune system resides in the gut. And when your gut flora is also compromised, and you keep pounding it with antibiotics, it also can cause leaky gut syndrome, where there'll be small little micro tears in the gut lining, and then your food can go through that and then go in through your body and into your bloodstream, and then your bloodstream will do one of these things to it, and then they'll try to fight it off, and that can cause autoimmune disease. I mean, we can just go on and on and on about gut health. So all these things are tended, like, it could happen. It does happen. I know people that it's happened to. Then I know people who've had antibiotics who seem to be just fine. So it kind of depends on your genetic makeup. It depends on your constitution of your body as well. But I want to do everything that I can to keep my son as healthy as possible. I don't want him to have a round of antibiotics if it's not 100% necessary. I don't like, even with myself, and I grew up too, where we didn't put things in our body unless it was 100% needed. So let's talk a little bit more about, say you had an antibiotic, or your child does. How do you recover from it? So if you have a baby or somebody or your child is breastfed, the best thing that you can do is breastfeed. Breastfeed, breastfeed, breastfeed. Your body naturally, one of the coolest things about breastfeeding is as soon as your baby's saliva and your nipple come in contact with each other, your body will start to pump out antibodies for exactly what your baby needs at that time. So say your baby had antibiotics and you're like, oh, I'm gonna breastfeed. And you're like, well, what if I don't have enough probiotics in my system? I've had antibiotics too. Mom, you are more than welcome, and it is perfectly fine to take probiotics as well into your body, and it can help boost the probiotics that will go in through your milk and be given to the baby. So breastfeed, breastfeed, breastfeed. Also, if you would like to, you can give your child a probiotic in a bottle every day. There's one really easy one to find. It's called Baby Flora. You can get it at like Whole Foods. I'm not sure about Trader Joe's, but Baby Flora is pretty easy to get. You keep it refrigerated. You give them like a scoop of it a day in their milk, and it works quite well. If you have an older child, you can give them probiotics. Nature Sunshine has really great probiotics that you can buy for kids that are tasty, so kids are going to be more than willing usually to take them. Or if they're able to like swallow capsules, you can give them probiotic capsules. Some probiotics don't really have much of a flavor, so you can mix it in with like applesauce or something like that. And I suggest taking probiotics as soon as you are done with your antibiotics. Just boom. Fast as possible. You can also have some really good things. You don't have to take capsules all the time. You can take like kombucha. You can buy fermented beverages that are like, I think they have kombucha. They have all sorts of like kefir. You may have heard of that. That all is like probiotic rich beverages, and you can drink those. They also are full of enzymes which break down your food, which is really great too. You can have wild fermentation. So like there's different types of fermented foods out there, like kimchi, sauerkraut. Some people like these soy beans that are fermented. I'm not a fan, but some people are. All sorts of different things that you can get that are fermented. You can find at your local health food store, or you can just head on to Pinterest or Google and find out, different things you can do in your home, because fermentation is really easy and very simple and cost effective. Also, if you're recovering from antibiotics, I suggest bone broth. Find out what your blood type is, and then coincide it with the right type of broth for you that your body will properly use and assimilate to the best of its ability. Once again, I'm not 100% against antibiotics. I think that they are overprescribed in the United States, and that is why we have all these super bugs or antibiotic resistant bugs and sicknesses and illnesses and things. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more, go ahead and comment or send me a message on Facebook, or you can send